key diagrams that would help especially somebody that doesn't understand what's going on in this book. Origin of Species is not for the mere layman to read. It is something that you have to have a slight understanding of science in order to get through it. Have you read the book at all?
No, I've never had a copy of it until this project.
But you should have.
I haven't had a chance to read mine yet.
So you haven't read it, okay? You don't know.
I read the introduction. It's a big book. I haven't had the copy of the book very long, so I haven't had a chance to go through it yet.
Right. So you're making an uninformed decision on whether or not evolution and Darwin's understanding through the natural selection, how evolution works, without understanding everything, you're making an uninformed decision on whether or not it's truth or fallacy. Is that correct?
Well, I mean, there's no evidence that you see change of.
That's not the question that I asked, is it?
Macroevolution.
That's not an answer to the question that I asked, is it? That's not an answer to the question that I asked, is it? We can get to that in a second. You do not have any studies whatsoever in this. What you're doing is parroting things from Answers in Genesis and the intelligent design movement in order to try and make your point.
Ray Comfort wrote the introduction.
I understand that, but you're going along with it. You're going out and proselytizing this, okay? And you're basing your understanding of evolution on not knowing anything about it. It's like you buying a Ford just because your daddy bought a Ford and his daddy before him bought a Ford, and yada, yada, yada. You're voting Republican just because your daddy voted Republican and his daddy before him voted Republican, etc. That's the only criteria. Now, let's go back.
Hold on a second. Sure. At the core, evolution teaches that, that nothing created everything.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't.
Evolution is suppressing the idea that there is a creator God.
It doesn't. No, it doesn't. Evolution explains the biological process of self-replicating molecules on how they begot to where they are today. It doesn't explain anything about abiogenesis. Have you ever heard of abiogenesis?
No.
You haven't heard of abiogenesis. How are you to make decisions on these type of things unless you know what these things are about? I mean, really. Do you go and buy a car? Go on.
Let me ask you a question.
Sure.
Tell me, as far as evolution is concerned, what is the primary thing that makes evolution move forward?
There is no primary thing that makes evolution go forth. Darwin's understanding of evolution at his infancy of understanding of life. The infancy of understanding. Hold on a second. At the infancy of understanding of the mechanism of what drives the speciations and drives us being able to go on and survive in environments. There are many other things. There are many other things. Genetics. We can see in genetics how we are directly, okay, cousins to chimpanzees. But you don't know these things. Do you know what an ERV is?
ERV? No.
Okay. So, again, without understanding any of the crucial sciences or the crucial mechanisms to any of this, all you want to do is say God done did it without understanding of anything. Now, let's go back to the fossil record that you were talking about, in which you seem to not see any of the fossil record. Okay, you can go to the Field Museum in Chicago, and please do so. But okay, if you want, I'll give you you can go to my URL, or you can call me up, And I will help to set you up with a guided tour and somebody with plenty of knowledge, a paleontologist or something, to be able to help you with understanding what's going on in the fossil record. Because at the Chicago Field Museum, there is a host of transitional fossils. And if you take a look at the first fossil, and you take a look at the last fossil in a long line of about 20 or 24 fossil remains, you will say, no way are they related. But as you look from one to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next, you can see how the similarities are so close that you can't even hardly see a difference. And yet, from 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, you see hardly any difference. And when you go from 10 to 11, 11 to 12, you see hardly any difference. But if you go from 1 to 10, there's a big difference. And from 10 to 20, there's a huge difference. This is showing explicitly, okay, the speciation events on how the slow, methodical changes that go over time go from one species into another species. The microevolution that you Christians so commonly misuse, okay, is a mechanism of macroevolution. Without the small changes, you can't have the large changes. And this is something that you people totally misrepresent and have no idea what you're talking about. None whatsoever. If you're interested in learning, you can come to the Debate Faith chat room, and we will help you learn what is out there. If you're interested. If you're interested in just saying God done did it, well, you're going to be on your own, and you're going to be left in the dust. Do you understand?
Look, we can debate evolution all that you want, okay? But the real issue is that if there is a God, then we're held accountable to him one day. The Bible says that it's appointed for man once to die, and then comes judgment. We have to face that God on Judgment Day. Each and every one of us is going to be in big trouble because we've all violated his laws, because he's given light to us. Our conscience has light. You know, every time we've told a lie, every time we've stolen something, every time we've looked with lust, Jesus said if you look with lust, you've committed adultery in your heart. Every time you haven't put God first in your life, or, you know, or ever taken something that didn't belong to you, or treated your parents with disrespect. These are all things. God knows all, he sees all, and he will one day hold us accountable for all things that we've done.
And in Revelations, it says, all that have lied will spend a time in the lake of fire. All that have lied. You, by passing out the origin of species, without telling people what was in it and what your agenda was, you were deceiving. Deceit is lying. You did this, okay, with affirmation, with the affirmation of you wanting to deceive people. This is premeditated.